They poured a bottle of $1,000 champagne over his head in front of 300 people at the company gala. The liquid cascaded down his janitor's uniform while the crowd laughed and took photos. But James Crawford didn't flinch. He simply smiled, reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and made one call that would destroy their lives forever. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the quiet man mopping their floors every night was actually the secret founder and majority shareholder of the entire company. And the devastating karma was just beginning. This is the story of how one man's patience and one family's cruelty collided in the most spectacular way possible. James Crawford had built Morrison Technologies from nothing 20 years ago. A brilliant software engineer, he'd created the algorithm that would revolutionize data security. But when his wife died suddenly, leaving him to raise their young daughter alone, James made a choice. He sold 51% of his company to Charles Morrison, a venture capitalist, on one condition: James would step back from public life completely. No one could know he was the founder. He'd stay on anonymously, working in the background, while Morrison ran the company and James could focus on being a father. The contract was ironclad. James retained final authority over all major decisions. He could reclaim his position at any time. But for 18 years, he'd watched from the shadows as Charles Morrison took credit for his creation. As the company grew into a billion-dollar empire, as the Morrison family lived in luxury built on his innovation, James didn't care about the recognition. He'd raised his daughter. She'd graduated from MIT. That was his victory. But 6 months ago, he'd decided to come back, not as the founder, but as a night janitor. He wanted to see what his company had become. What he discovered made his blood boil. The Morrison family was poison. Charles Morrison's son, Derek, had been handed the CEO position on his 30th birthday, not through merit, but through nepotism. Derek was cruel, entitled, and incompetent. He fired senior employees on whims, slashed benefits, and turned the innovative culture James had built into a toxic hierarchy. But Derek's wife Rachel was even worse. She'd started hosting executive wives events at the office, treating the building like her personal country club. And she had a particular target: the janitors, the security guards, the cafeteria workers. James saw it all. He watched Rachel snap her fingers at Maria in HR, demanding she fetch coffee like a servant. He watched Derek berate a young programmer to tears over a minor bug. He watched them throw extravagant parties with company money while denying Christmas bonuses to the people who actually kept the company running. Every night, James mopped their floors, emptied their trash, and listened. He documented everything. Every policy violation. Every instance of harassment. Every financial irregularity. He was building a case, but he wasn't ready yet. Then came the annual gala. Morrison Technologies hosted it every year at the Grand Hotel, a black-tie event for 300 employees, clients, and investors. James wasn't invited, obviously. Janitors didn't make the guest list. But James had access to the building. He had keys to everything. So on the night of the gala, he put on his janitor uniform and went to work his normal shift. He'd clean the executive floor while they partied, just like always. What he didn't expect was Derek Morrison to show up early, drunk, angry, and looking for a fight. James was mopping the marble floor outside the CEO's office when he heard the elevator ding. Derek stumbled out, tie loosened, face flushed, with Rachel on his arm. They'd clearly pre-gamed before the gala. Well, Derek slurred, spotting James. Look who's still here. The old man with the mop. James kept mopping. Good evening, Mr. Morrison. You know what I hate about you. Derek stepped closer, swaying slightly. You're always here. Every night. Watching. It's creepy. Just doing my job, sir. Rachel laughed, a cruel, tinkling sound. Derek, leave the help alone. We're going to be late. But Derek wasn't done. He'd been in a foul mood all week. The board had questioned his latest acquisition, a vanity project that was bleeding money. His father had sided with the board, embarrassing him in front of everyone. Derek needed someone to take it out on. You know what? Derek snatched the mop from James's hands. I don't think you're doing a very good job. This floor. Still dirty. He threw the mop across the hallway, where it clattered against the wall. James stood perfectly still, his face calm. I'll get that. No. Derek was warming up now, feeding off Rachel's giggles. I think you need to learn a lesson about quality work. Get on your knees. Excuse me. You heard me. Get on your knees and scrub this floor properly. With your hands. James looked at Derek. Really looked at him. This boy, this spoiled, cruel boy, standing in the company James had built, wearing a suit bought with profits from James's algorithm, demanding he crawl. Something in James's expression made Derek nervous for just a second. But the alcohol pushed him forward. Do it, or you're fired. James slowly got to his knees. He pulled the cleaning cloth from his belt. And he began to scrub the already spotless floor with his bare hands while Derek and Rachel laughed. That's better, Derek said. Maybe you'll finally earn that minimum wage we pay you. They left him there and headed to the elevator. But as the doors closed, Derek had one more idea. Actually, Rachel, you know what would be hilarious? We should bring him to the gala. Rachel's eyes lit up. Oh my God, yes. Like a show. 20 minutes later, James stood in the grand ballroom of the hotel, still in his janitor's uniform, while 300 people in evening gowns and tuxedos stared at him. Derek had dragged him there personally. Ladies and gentlemen, he'd announced from the stage, microphone in hand. I want to introduce you to someone special. This is James, our most dedicated janitor. He works so hard. I thought he deserved to see what success looks like. The crowd laughed, some uncomfortably, others cruelly. In fact, Derek continued, grabbing a bottle of champagne from a nearby table. Let's give him a toast. To James, the man who cleans up all our messes. And then Derek Morrison poured the entire bottle over James's head. The champagne soaked through James's uniform, dripped down his face, pooled at his feet. Camera phones came out. People were recording. Rachel was cackling. Even Charles Morrison, standing near the back, was smiling, proud of his son's humor. The ballroom was silent except for scattered laughter. James stood there, dripping, perfectly still. And then he smiled. It wasn't a bitter smile or a forced smile. It was calm, knowing, almost pitying. He reached into his pocket, carefully, so the champagne-soaked fabric wouldn't damage it, and pulled out his phone. He wiped the screen with his thumb and made one call. The phone rang once. Twice. Yes, sir. A woman's voice, clear and professional. James spoke quietly, but in the dead silence of the ballroom, everyone heard him. Linda, it's James Crawford. Activate the Morrison protocol. All of it. Effective immediately. He hung up. Derek was still laughing. Morrison protocol. What the hell is that? Is that like a cleaning schedule? James looked at him. It's the end of your career, Derek. All of yours. And then the phone started ringing. Derek's phone buzzed first. He pulled it out, still grinning. Then his face went white. He looked up at his father across the room. Dad, I just got an email from the board. It says. Charles Morrison's phone was ringing now. He answered it, frowning. Yes. What? That's impossible. I'm the CEO. You can't. His face drained of color. Who authorized this? More phones. Rachel's. The CFO's. The entire executive team standing near the stage. Maria from HR pushed through the crowd, her face urgent. She whispered something to Charles Morrison. He staggered backward like he'd been punched. Ladies and gentlemen, James said calmly, addressing the ballroom. Allow me to properly introduce myself. My name is James Crawford. 20 years ago, I founded this company. I created the algorithm that made Morrison Technologies what it is today. I own 49% of this company and retain final operational authority per the founding contract. Charles Morrison was brought on as a managing partner. Not the owner. A partner. The ballroom erupted in chaos. That's not possible. Derek shouted. This is my father's company. No, James said. It's mine. I've been here for 6 months, watching, documenting, waiting. And tonight, Derek, you've given me all the evidence I needed to invoke Clause 17 of the founding agreement. The removal of the Morrison family from all positions due to gross misconduct, harassment, and financial malfeasance. He looked at Charles. Check your email, Charles. The board has received my recommendation and voted unanimously. You're removed as CEO, effective immediately. Derek, you're fired. Rachel, you're banned from company property. And the auditors are already reviewing the $3.2 million in company funds you've illegally spent on personal expenses. The next 15 minutes were carnage. Derek tried to run. He actually ran for the door, phone in hand, trying to call lawyers. But hotel security, hired by James an hour earlier, blocked his path. Sir, Mr. Crawford has requested you remain for the police. Police? Rachel shrieked. For what? Embezzlement, James said calmly. Harassment. Fraud. The documentation has already been submitted to law enforcement. You'll be formally charged tomorrow, but I thought you should know tonight. Charles Morrison tried to salvage it. He approached James, hands up, voice conciliatory. James, we can talk about this. This is extreme. We've worked together for 20 years. No, Charles. I worked. You took credit. There's a difference. James's voice was ice. Did you know Derek harassed 12 employees in the last 6 months alone? That he fired Maria's assistant for refusing his advances? That Rachel has been using company resources to run her personal shopping business? Charles's face said he knew. He'd known and done nothing. You enabled this, James continued. You created a culture where your family could abuse people like me, people who actually built this company, because you thought we were beneath you. Because I was just the janitor to you now, not the founder you'd made a deal with. Where will we go? Rachel whispered, the reality hitting her. Derek's salary is gone, James finished. Your penthouse, company housing, terminated effective Monday. Your cars, company leases, being repossessed. Your club memberships, your credit cards, your lifestyle, all built on company money you stole. Gone. The ballroom crowd had split into two groups. Those gleefully watching the Morrisons' downfall, and those nervously checking their own phones, worried they'd enabled this. Maria approached James quietly. Sir, the entire executive team has tendered their resignations. They are afraid of legal exposure. Accept them, James said. Promote from within. Find me the senior engineers, the people who actually do the work. I want them running departments by Monday. He turned back to the crowd. For everyone else here tonight, Morrison Technologies is under new management. Mine. If you've been part of the problem, leave now. If you've been suffering under this family's cruelty, come see me tomorrow. We're rebuilding the culture I created 20 years ago. Innovation, respect, and merit. Derek made one last attempt. He grabbed a microphone from a nearby stand. You can't do this. I'm calling our lawyers. This is illegal. You signed away your rights when you sold the company. James pulled a document from his jacket pocket, somehow still dry despite the champagne. This is the original founding agreement. Clause 17, Clause 23, and Clause 31 give me absolute authority to resume operational control if the managing partner breaches ethical standards. You've breached them all, Derek. Spectacularly. He held up his phone, showing a video. This is footage from tonight, you forcing me to scrub floors, pouring champagne on me. But I have 6 months of footage. You throwing coffee at a programmer. Rachel screaming at the cafeteria worker. You falsifying expense reports. All documented. All admissible. You are spying on us. Rachel gasped. No. I was working as a janitor in my own company. You just forgot I existed. James pocketed the phone. That was your mistake. The police arrived 40 minutes later. Derek and Rachel were escorted out in handcuffs, not arrested yet, but detained for questioning. Charles Morrison left on his own, aged a decade in one night, his legacy destroyed. The gala crowd dispersed in shocked silence. James stood in the empty ballroom, still in his champagne-soaked janitor's uniform, and called his daughter. Dad. Her voice was concerned. It's late. Everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart. Better than fine. I just wanted to tell you, I'm coming back to work. Really back. I'm taking over the company again. Dad, that's amazing. But what happened? Did something change? James looked at the puddle of champagne at his feet, the discarded bottle, the abandoned tables. Let's just say I remembered why I built the company in the first place. It wasn't about money or recognition. It was about creating something good. And I let someone else destroy that. Not anymore. I'm proud of you, Dad. I'm proud of you too, sweetheart. Get some sleep. I'll call you tomorrow. He hung up and looked around the ballroom one more time. Maria approached, still in her gown. Mr. Crawford, the hotel manager wants to know if you'd like to change. They have spare clothes. No, James said. I think I'll keep this uniform a while longer. It's a good reminder. Of what? That it doesn't matter what you're wearing or what title is on your door. What matters is how you treat people. The Morrisons forgot that. A lot of companies forget that. I won't forget again. Maria smiled. For what it's worth, sir, we all knew something was different about you. The way you worked, you cared about the small things. You fixed things without being asked. You knew everyone's names. I learned everyone's names 20 years ago when we were a 10-person startup in a garage, James said. They built this company with me. They deserve respect. The next morning, James Crawford walked into Morrison Technologies headquarters, now Crawford Technologies again, in a tailored suit. The name change had been filed overnight. The board had unanimously voted him chairman and CEO. The employees gathered in the lobby, unsure what to expect. James addressed them from the main staircase. I know last night was chaos. I know many of you are confused or angry or scared. Let me be clear. If you were part of the Morrison family's corruption, you should leave now. But if you were a victim of it, or if you simply kept your head down and did good work despite it, you have nothing to fear. He paused. I built this company to change the world. We did that. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that changing the world starts with how we treat each other. That changes today. We're going back to basics, innovation, integrity, and respect. If you're on board with that, I want you here. If not, there's the door. No one left. Over the next 3 months, Crawford Technologies transformed. Derek Morrison was charged with embezzlement and harassment. He took a plea deal and avoided prison but lost everything. Rachel divorced him and disappeared from public life. Charles Morrison retired in disgrace, his reputation destroyed. But the company thrived. James promoted 12 employees who'd been stuck in low positions despite exceptional work. He reinstated benefits Derek had cut. He hired back the people Derek had fired unjustly. And he made one more change. He kept the janitor's uniform. It hung in a glass case in the lobby with a plaque, a reminder that greatness isn't about titles. It's about character. And every year, on the anniversary of the gala, James Crawford would put on that uniform and spend one night mopping the floors of his company, remembering where he'd been, honoring the people who did that work every night, and never forgetting the lesson that champagne had taught him. That the people you treat as invisible are often the ones who see everything. And when they finally speak up, they can change everything.